All right, guys, it's time to start breaking down those rebellion cards. So we're going to try to get into this pretty quickly because I don't want to waste a lot of time. So let's go right into the Mav server and take a look at my fire team and fire cards first. So when we're doing this, I'm going to be talking about basically the new modern format in my videos. That's why I am showing the Chaos Legion summoners. Now, obviously, there's something glaringly missing from this, and that is the legendary summoners that will be coming out in the airdrops. So right now, obviously, when you're looking at the fire team, their main summoner is still going to be Yasik. He's going to be the only summoner with +2 speed at this time for an entire team. But we all know Scattershot can be a little hit or miss on whether or not you want it, but Piercing is pretty powerful. Now, their Tactic Summoner that is coming to the Fire team is an interesting card, giving 2 units to spell or 2 units -2 magic. This is a very interesting card. As far as like a tactical card, I think that the ability for -2 magic to 2 units is a very interesting because you can target the magic monsters that would bug you the most. One of the questions I do have, if somebody can answer this in the comments, can I put a monster's attack to 0 with a minus? I'm thinking that you can't because normally with a silence, you can only push them down to 1. So if that is true, this is not as impactful. That's what I'm assuming it is that if you did it to somebody with 2 magic damage, they would go down to 1. Scargor is going to be interesting in the new meta because Enrage is going to be much more usable without Kitty out there as a counter. If somebody, like, a lot of the speed meta is going to become a lot more interesting because of the fact that you don't have an auto hitting summoner in the game anymore that gets used so frequently. Tarsa is still going to be solid. The plus attack and the plus is always good with the plus health. And the Eternal Brute is going to be interesting. The longer that people have to get more and more gladiators up to level, the more idea that a gladiator will and a -2 armor will be a playable card. Also, if mana caps keep going up in time, this 6 won't be too daunting. The thing is, the fire team isn't one of the teams with one of the most powerful gladiators. So they don't have the Quora, they don't have Captain Katie. So their cards, you don't see Eternal Brute get played that often. Now, one of the things that we're going to be talking about while we're doing this deep dive into the fire team is going to be the Fire Death Summoner and the Fire Earth Summoner. These summoners are going to be interesting. It does giving your whole team Enrage or Speed and Piercing, or doing this tactic move after you get to see the board, or getting a Gladiator -2 armor, or getting these stats worth you having 2 teams. Now, the obvious time the 2 team summoners are going to be very popular is when summoners are silenced, because from what we understand, they are still able to summon monsters from both teams, and they don't have an ability. They're kind of like a silent summoner already that has access to 2 teams. Whereas all of these guys would then lose their ability, and they're the new 3-cost monster. So they're the lowest mana cap, and they'll give you access to multiple teams. This is kind of something that Camille has done for the Dragon team. She is the -1 melee attack Dragon Summoner that costs 3, and then let you pick another team. That one was kind of the default go-to for Silent Summoners in the past to bring dragons in one other team. Well, now you have some other things to look at depending on the other rule sets that might accompany that. So that really covers all of the summoners. So let's start getting into the monsters. We're going to go to here, and we're going to get rid of those. And just temporarily, we're going to take Chaos Legion off the board. These are the new cards, and so it's better, I think, to look at them alone. Now, I did open 1,000 packs in that other video. I just did a combine all over here on the Mav server. As you can see, I have most of these cards around level 6 and level 5, and some of the legendaries that I pulled a lot are going to be level 4 and level 3. Some of them are going to be like level 2. We'll still click on the cards and do kind of a deep dive on each one of them as quickly as I can, but without a doubt, this is my first impressions, and as we play, there will be some follow-up videos going over these things. Now, this one is the one that most people know the most about. We've seen this card before. So you can see him. He's an ambush at level 1 with a sneak. If you push him up to level 3 for max level bronze, he still only has 1 attack. But he basically will get to sneak twice, right? He'll get to do a sneak attack in the ambush phase and then at the beginning of the game, and then he'll do a regular turn 1 sneak attack as well. The interesting things about this, if you're playing somebody who has like 1 armor, he'll pop the armor off, then he'll pop a hit on them. And if you're playing him with Tarsa, he's going to have 2 attack. So that's one thing to note. And there's some other ways you can buff his attack up. Now, I would say that this card, it would be very, very impactful, except for his attack is a bit low. Here, when you get him Shatter at level 5, but this is not until Silver, this becomes a whole nother use case. If you think they're going to have a big armored tank in that last position, then you can put him onto the board, and during the ambush phase, he's going to slaughter that armor away. And then some of your other attackers who might even be faster than him in the normal first turn are going to do some cool stuff. Now, I don't want to spend too long in each one of these monsters. We'll look at him at champion level. He becomes much more competitive, obviously at level 8, but level 8 is even... is that outside of gold? Let me think. This is max. No, this is max gold. Okay, so he gets that second attack at 8. He gets a third attack if you get him to the max level. For him to be competitive in champion, he is going to probably have to be max level because you need that third attack so that he does 2 to a shield. And he never gets another ability other than Shatter. So we'll leave that behind. Now, as far as whether or not this is an ambushing team, you will see there is no other new ambush card, at least not in this mid-tier. We'll double check some of those other things. Okay, so here's a card that is very interesting. This one is your 0 attack card. Now, it has blast damage. This is definitely meant to be used with some of the weapons trainers that are out there. It has an Inspire, so it gives itself another attack if you can give it a melee attack. It has 6 speed and it has backfire. Now, when you're playing at the lower levels, at level 3, it only has backfire with decent HP and decent speed. You're maybe not going to use it as much. In Silver, when it picks up that Inspire, that becomes much more playable. That card that we just showed you, this is one of the cards that can buff its speed. When it gets up to here and it picks up Blast, that might be a bit of a novelty, but with the new weapons training being something that does not go away as easily and is much easier to give them a nice, decent attack, all of a sudden a 2-cost card with possibly 3 to 4 attack with 6 speed looks kind of interesting, plus it has a Blast attack. I really think that this is going to create one of those cards that is meant to create some very unique lineups within the game. We've got a new mage that joined the team. Now, looking at this at the lowest level, you get a dodge, you get a scatter shot, a one-shot mage. This could be an interesting card to throw into the on a team. Just if you're expecting them to possibly have some weak backline support. Now, one of the problems with it, though, 1 attack, there's not many monsters have 1 attack in the back, so I don't love this card. Now, when you get it to level 8 and it has 2 attack and it has double on a taunt monster, again, this is a very weird setup because it'd have to shoot the taunt monster on accident. Overall, this card, it's not my favorite. I don't like it when 2 abilities don't work together, but it is a Little League mage that would be a 2/4/2 with armor and dodge. It's going to have its use cases, but there's going to be times where it's not going to do what you want it to do because of that scatter shot. And it doesn't play well with Yasik, who gives scatter shot because she already has scatter shot. So it's kind of a weird card. We're going to look at the Chaos Orc here. The Chaos Orc, when you look at him at low level, he's a nice 3/3/2/6 with piercing. Overall, just a solid little 6-cost tank. No problem there. Nothing to write home about, but if you're a newer player and this is a tank you have, that's not a bad setup. What's interesting about this card is that when you start playing in Gold League and up, or even max level Silver, he gains trample. There's not a ton of trample cards in the game, We've already seen an Inspire card, so you can talk about 4 attack. You can talk about him having 5 attack with Tarsa and that 2-cost card on the board. So you're talking about a 5 attacking trample card. Very, very interesting. He doesn't ever pick up another ability, which is going to prevent him from being maybe one of the more broken trample cards in the game. But then up here at Champion, he does get an extra attack, an extra speed, and a little bit more HP and armor. So he becomes always just a decent tank. I don't see him as being a card that is going to get a ton of play, but it could be interesting. Okay, now here's one of the cards that is probably going to get a little more play. So this is Torch Mirdon. He has Flank. Flank is going to give you the ability to give other cards reach. So what this card can allow you to do is all of a sudden turn this last guy into a trampoline reach monster. So him in a game where you can put, let's just say, Chaos Golem in the front just really quickly. You can put him as your reach position with this person in your third position. And now you've got 3 guys that can attack when they go into the front row. And they, it's just a nice little setup. Also, in kind of a weird setup, you could use him as a tank because of close range and flank, and then put that guy behind him to be able to be the reach monster. Because he's an archer, though, I don't think that is the play. It's very interesting. Eventually he picks up a shatter. A 5-speed shatter is pretty good, so I like that. And then at max level, he picks up that extra attack just to be able to deal a little bit more attack, a little bit more speed. So overall, this is just a solid card. But because it has that new flank ability that it allows another monster to pick up the reach ability, I can see him being used because he can be put next to any of these melee monsters and give them the reach attack. Okay, we'll come here and take a quick look at the flame. This is just a standard 2-cost archer. Nothing really to spend a lot of time on here. It flies, which is nice to have another card that flies. It does have 2 attack in bronze, so that's very interesting. This is a rare. Never mind. It has a 2 attack in silver, and then it has that 2 attack all the way up, but it picks up backfire. It's not that fast, so that's an interesting speed thing. But I could see this as a card you could throw in that last position on a team where you're playing Yasic. It'll be 6 speed then with backfire. That's a little bit more of a play. So it's definitely an interesting little 2-cost mage. This is really probably just filling out that mana slot because they are losing one of their better 2-cost mage from the Untamed set. All right, now we have the Torch Visor. Okay, this is interesting. This card is very, very interesting. You're losing in fire one of the great Untamed 3-cost Serpentine Spy opportunity monsters, but you're picking up now a very interesting opportunity reflection shield with 4 speed. This is almost like a Rooney, but who's fast. So that's kind of interesting right there in itself. Obviously, the reflection shield evasion is nice because it can't kill itself by running into thorns. So it has its opportunity the whole time. I think I said evasion. I meant to say opportunity. Sorry about that. And then it picks up its reflection shield once we get into the upper. Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. The upper level of silver. And then as you level it up from there, it just gets more damaging. It never gets any faster, so 4 speed always. Definitely, this is an interesting card to add to a Yasic deck. There's going to be some interesting plays in the new Yasic decks where they're just going to be fast melee monsters with piercing. Definitely a very interesting card. Now we have the demon. All right, let's take a look at this. We have another Scattershot card. Very interesting to see these Scattershot cards come out. Now, I do like this. This is a True Strike monster. True Strike will get its play. Scattershot means at least when it aims in the back and is going to hit somebody, it's going to hit them. And Oppress. Now, Oppress isn't definitely a more interesting skill than some people are thinking when it comes to Rebellion. In Rebellion, we're going to be in a situation where you don't want to overlook the ability of the oppressed, but at the same time, when you can't target someone, but you could target anyone, it's going to be an interesting play. It has that true strike right away, even in bronze, so that's nice. It has 2 attack right away, that's nice. And it picks up that oppress at max level. Now that means that's only going to play into the max level champion type players, but one of the things that I'll just note is when every team is getting these 0 attack cards, and when you weapon train them, oppress is still going to do double damage on them. So that's just something that you have to remember. Now, this card can be weapons trained to have melee attacks, or with the next card, it can be given archery attacks, and that's when he might be able to plink her, do double damage, and kill her, because he can't miss her either. Okay, so here's our back row epic. What's this guy called here? Let's see, Dalton Ironhood. So this is your weapons trainer. He's a weapons trainer with immunity, so that's an interesting back row card for a poison match. Also, just as just in general, not being able to be poisoned. And then he picks up a redemption. Redemption is always a fun ability for a monster to have. I should have got some caffeine before I did this. Had a cup of coffee, it seems. But the Dalton Ironblood, without a doubt, is going to be a card that's going to see some play. In a Yasic team up, it's a nice archer with piercing. It's got armor and life, but it doesn't blow me away for an epic card. Now, weapons training is going to be an interesting play, and maybe I'm overlooking how useful this card is, because with the new weapons training that is coming out, he would pass 3 archery damage onto this card, which would be a very nice play. All right, now we're getting the Infernal Firestorm epic card. This one obviously starts to be a bit more impressive. When you look at it down at the lower levels, it's still a nice big, lots of armor, decent speed, lots of health. It has that flank ability, so it can also be another one. Interesting, they do have 2 cards with flank. That's a very interesting setup you can do. Definitely. At level 3, it gets that extra magic damage, making it being one more big mage for the mage lineup. And this is a card that could work with Yasic. Mages that shoot random places can be very interesting because they can find vulnerable monsters in the back. It never gets that 4th magic attack, but it does get a demoralize. So demoralizes are definitely interesting. When you don't have a team with a force field, which they didn't pick up in this one, I can definitely see that being something you use. Now, this is a very interesting card. You got the Chaos Golem. I like this card a lot. You got good attack, good speed, good armor, good health. You do have some abilities that fight with each other a little bit, in the fact that Enrage might make him harder to hit, but he can retaliate and shoot back armor. So obviously he's only a 9 cost too. That's nice, because you don't have to worry about a giant killer just blowing him away. So he's definitely an interesting card. Magic would be his bane, so we'll have to see if he can become something in the meta. In a non-magic game, or a game where you protect him from magic, he's very interesting. Let's go ahead and look at the other legendary card. We did get enough to get this guy to max level. So he's an archer. He's got quite a lot of abilities. So he is the other flank the ambush card on the team. He is a very fast card. He gives them an amplify here at max level. He has piercing, and he has an affliction. So this guy is definitely very interesting. Flank turn. So in the very first turn, he's going to shoot for 5. He's going to put affliction on people possibly before the game is even started. If you have a little bit of armor, he's going to go right through that. And definitely, I could see this card being used with the Ossic, and then your flank attack is just going to hit some random place in the back, hopefully, and just pop somebody because he hits so hard with a nice piercing. Now, obviously, in lower levels, he just has that flank affliction to try to put an affliction on the first character. That's definitely pretty interesting. I think with that big attack, he gets much better in the Gold League, and then this. It's yet to be seen how important this will be. Does the team have a lot of ways to reflect damage? If Amplify started to work on backfire, that could be more impactful for this team. But now let's go ahead and add the Chaos Legion in. So immediately we're going to talk quickly about some of the cards that these cards kind of mesh well with. So one of them, we'll go right here to the legendary. And a rewards card here, you have the other weapons training option here. Now he's a weapons training reach monster with reflection shield. So now you can put that 2-cost card in front of him. He'll pass 4 damage to her, so she'll have 4 attack in the front. That was what I was talking about. Now, when you look at some of the other cards here, who is going to be the new tank for the fire team? Now, the Antoid platoon in lower mana matches is definitely going to have his day, but with Living Lava being gone, you kind of got a toss-up here between the Chaos Orc, the Septic Slime, the Ferox Defender, and then if you go down here, you do have cards like the Forgotten One and Tusk the Wide. You do have Urda with the Taunt, who can be your front row tank. You still have Grum. So now Grum has some high mana cards that can be played with him. Innately, they don't have a ton of no attack monsters to be used with weapons training, even though they have 2 weapons trainers. But we'll go ahead and call them all out. Actually, they have more than I thought. So you have the Venari Heatsmith. That can be an archer in the back row now with an Amplify. You have the Scalvo Chemist that you could give some archer attack to in the back row. You have the new card, wherever she is, right here. No, not the Flame. Where is that little card? There it is, the Nimbric Scout. And then you've got the Urda Fire. So definitely interesting. There's going to be some interesting lineups that people can throw up onto the board. Let's see. You got a speed meta here. So you have your opportunity combo is going to be Countess Shanish with the torch. That's interesting. They don't really get a sneak meta. You do definitely see though that they have a Tarsa double inspire team now. So you could inspire here, and can they inspire anywhere else? A quick drink. I don't see anyone. So a nice double mana setup. Okay, now this one's going to be interesting. Let's look at the Earth team. Now this one is going to be kind of hard to do, but we're still going to try to do this really quickly. This has already been a bit of a long video, but we're trying to deep dive into these things. So let's go ahead and look at the fire team. Now this does mean you could have cards like the Pelicorn Mercenary come into the board and get like the Countess Shanish speed buff and be the tank for green. That's a very interesting play. That also means that you could have cards like the Lurking Puffer end up in front of the Ferox Defender or the Torch. So that's another playable combo. When you look at some of the other things, if you wanted to try a dual evasion team, our opportunity team, where are the green opportunity monsters? Do they have any that come to mind? No, I'm not seeing any that come I might just be blind, so maybe you could laugh at me a little bit on this one. But I was trying to think. I'm like, I don't think green has one. We hadn't gone over the green team yet though, so I didn't see any in here. There's that the Mystic. One of the things that's interesting, Fire innately didn't have a lookout when we went over any of the new cards. So this is one of the things where they're going to be able to pick out a lookout character if they want to do that coming from the green team. Let's see. From the old green cards, you definitely have some interesting cards. You could come in and you could play. They can pick up the Queen Massilia for a nice armor debuff and armor get. They can have a nice taunting tank and the Incredible Hulk while having some of the fire cards to back him up. One of the obvious major things that they can do is they can have a silencing healer now. Goblin Psychic is such a meta card because he's a healer at level at 1, and now all of a sudden you can have some of these cards that didn't have healers before have a healer. Like that makes Ferox Defender so much more interesting as a tank. Now he has his own repair, his own protect, his own shatter, and he can have a healer behind him, and his one weakness of a mage is getting a silence because the goblin is behind him. So that's definitely an interesting thing to do. You can also have Forgotten One who has immunity, finally have a healer behind him to heal him back up and do the same thing, protect him from mages with that silence. So that's definitely a big play, just this one card being added into the team. When you look at some of the other cards that are here, most of them look like they'll be decent add-ons. It's definitely going to be interesting to see what people end up creating here. One of the things that I think is going to be the most impactful when you're talking about those dual summoners are going to be for those times that you can only use the melee monsters or only use the archers or only use mages, and all of a sudden then you're bringing in a whole nother set of cards and all the mages from that other set to make things just so much more competitive. Now before we go on to death, we're going to add the natural cards in here too, and just get you an idea, like this is what that dual summoner would have the ability to go and use. I mean, there's just a ton of cards. Do we have a lookout in the we have another ambush monster here, but it's ambush with scatter shot. Here we go. We have a lookout here. 8 costs though. He's pretty expensive, and a reach monster at that. That can give you a lookout, but that means you can't really place that exactly where you want it. So that's interesting. And there is another a silence voiding magic user over here. So that's definitely an interesting play. Manaroth as a tank option with his shield and his double attack and his true strike and repair. I don't know how good of a tank he'll be in matches you can play him. His health is kind of low, and mages could be bad for him. But we do have the fire team that can use that double negative mage move if they use their tactic summoner to give him a little bit of protection. He already has a shield though, so you could also maybe give him a dispel. That'd be kind of an interesting play. It's going to be kind of wild trying to think up some of these lineups that people could play. I mean, already I can see a game where you do something like Forgotten One in the front with Goblin Psychic on the board. You throw Urda Fire in the last position with the new card right here of the Torthian Smith in next to her to give her a nice archery attack while she's bringing everything into her. And then you've got a nice taunt on the board. You've got a heal for the front with a repair of all the armor that's going on. I mean, there's definitely some interesting plays. Then we can go ahead and take the earth off the board and add in the death cards. We'll take the neutral cards off. Now, one of the interesting thing is that brings a card like Zuriel into board. For the weapons trainers, that brings Riftring into board. That also probably brings you some other versions of weapons training that you could look at, so that maybe you could bookend somebody and give them 2 types of attacks, which would be very interesting. You do have the Will of the Wisp being a very interesting card with no attack that you could buff up with those different cards. You have a lookout here in a nice 5-cost legendary archer. I mean mage monster. You do have a 13-cost legendary here that we'll get to later on. Death has some really good mages, and then you combine those in with some of the good mages from the fire team, you definitely could come out with some different things. Now, Death doesn't have a healing card, and they didn't get one in the new set, and Fire doesn't have one. They didn't get one in the new set. So this team is going to be looking to probably be a lot more offensive in the way it works, and possibly just playing around more with some of the weapons trainer ideas, because you do have like these 2 cards that have no attack, and then who has weapons training for the Death team? Does anybody? They got an armor strike. I forgot to take a quick look at the Death team. Here it is. So the Dusk Knight. So you could put the Dusk Knight next to one of these cards, next to this card, and I believe the way it would work is they would get magic and archery damage in the back row, and then be able to attack with both of those attacks. Then you could bookend with them with cards like this, and give those cards only one of the attacks, but you could all of a sudden have this very interesting lineup of cards that have very interesting attacks. So I think we're going to end it there. I know I didn't probably get into as much detail as I want. There's a lot here to take in, and hopefully you enjoyed that. Remember, this one was basically just a quick look at some of the different cards that the dual summoners are going to get to look at the end, and really going over the new cards of the fire team in the beginning. Thanks, guys. Bye.